So welcome back to part 2 of chapter 11, Managing Organizational Change, Resistance, and Conflict. So as we talk about the nature of change, there's 3 aspects to the nature of change that we should understand. First of all, change has an impact. Now notice, it doesn't say change has a negative impact, okay? It can have a positive or anticipatory impact. It can have a negative impact leading to dread, not knowing what's going on. So again, it's back to communication of the change or changes that are going to be made. Okay, so we've got to consider impact on everyone involved, everyone who will be affected by the change. We've got to think about communicating that. We've got to think about communicating the process of change. Change does not happen overnight. Even if we implement it overnight, it doesn't mean it's going to be accepted immediately, as we saw, in the false beliefs of change management, right? And the last one I think is the most important, and that is to remember that change is emotional. There are physiological results that come from the dread of stress or from the positive impacts of change, you get the idea of what I was saying. So it can be emotional. It can be stressful. It can lead to anxiety. So we need to be able to recognize that. And sometimes it's as simple as just letting someone who wants to vent saying, you know what, I've been doing this for years and this has worked well and I don't understand why we have to change. And they go on, blah, 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 blah. And all they want to do is vent. Then there's the opportunity for you to say, well, have you thought about this? This is actually going to make your job easier. It's going to make your job more efficient. It's going to make your job better, whatever the case may be. But the first aspect is listening to the emotional impact that change has on them. And again, change doesn't always have to be negative. As we look at assimilating change, this idea of the change threshold, okay? Assimilation of change, what's required and over time. So as we look at this, problems occur when we must deal with too many changes or when we can't assimilate to change fast enough. So consider that if you're making changes, how many changes, how much is the impact? Maybe a percentage. If someone spends 6 hours of their 8-hour day in your system and you're changing the entire system, you're changing the graphical user interface, you are changing the way they do it, you are changing the computer that it's installed on, whatever the case may be. All of those things are not just one change. They're many changes to the human asset who is responsible for interoperating with the system. Okay, so time affects that in that the longer we can give someone to assimilate to change, normally the better off they are. However, there is also the other side, which is we can't give them too much or we lose the value in the change we're looking to make. Okay, so there is that balance. And of course, add change upon change upon change. And if somebody's anxious with one change, they're going to be exponentially anxious with 2. Here is Leavitt's model for impact of organizational change. So when we talk about organizational change, impacts can be people, they can be technology, they can be task-based or action-based, and then of course structure as well. We'll kind of look at these a little bit more in detail. So change, again, is a process. We talked about that. When we talk about changing, we're usually going from a static. We're unfreezing something. We're determining what needs to change, ensure there's strong leadership to support the change. This cannot be understated. Now, even though your CEO, the president of your company, whatever, is not involved in a project, is not involved with the change, having her support that change is hugely important. Okay? Because when we see that people at the top are supporting change and that people below them are supporting change, then our comfort level for us to support the change is made better. Now, that's one way. But since they're in a leadership role, sort of a, change or get out role, the most positive impact to the end user of change is other end users. And that's why we want end users on a project. Okay, so But we want to communicate why the need for change. How does this change support the strategy of the organization, the vision, the strategic, the current strategic plan, whatever the case may be. Manage and understand the doubts and concerns. What that means is creating an environment where people can express without risk their concerns as it pertains to a project or pertains to the change within a project, as we talk about. As we talk about taking actionable steps to that change, well, communication is the first thing. If you think about it, in your own personal relationships, how did you get past a conflict? You got past a conflict by communicating about it. If you have two healthy people that are communicating in conflict, they're both going to take the time to listen to the other, to process the other's opinion, and to give their own in a respectful way, and then come together as a compromise. Okay. Sometimes it's as simple as dispelling rumors. The rumor mill, we've talked about that. Hugely important that we communicate over the rumor mill. Empower action. How can we empower the people who are going to be affected by the change to support and perhaps even manage the change themselves? And then, of course, we've said it, involve people in the process. Okay, so the people affected by the change, affected by the system that you're implementing, your project team need to be involved in the process of determining how and when you will manage change. Finally, once we make the change, well, then we anchor it, okay? We put the change into the culture. So here it is. We've changed. We've implemented a new system. We're freezing it now. We're not going to continue to make change upon change. We develop ways to sustain the change, provide support and training, right? And celebrate success. Important to celebrate. We've talked about celebrating milestones within a project, and the same thing holds true. That's really what we're doing. Within a project, we could be making many changes, but when we celebrate that change, that, hey, we have made that change, we create a healthy environment of support, okay? So all these things can help. Now, one idea to consider is if we're implementing a new system, let's implement it, and then let's commit to not making any changes as long as there's not bug fixes that are implemented, that need to be implemented to secure the system, to fix the system so that it works properly, etc. I'm talking about updates, okay? Let people become comfortable with the system before you create updates and change. So emotional responses to change. So here's Kubler-Ross's change curve. Okay, now if you noticed, I've added something to this change curve that I didn't find on this diagram that I found, and that is stability. So before change, we tend to be pretty stable. When change comes, whatever the change is, whether it's personal, professional, etc., we tend to be shocked by it, surprise or shock at the event. Now keep in mind, if we are doing our job and communicating change, communicating impact, a lot of these things can be minimized. Denial, disbelief, looking for evidence, frustration with the change. Maybe that even leads to depression. The idea that, wow, I know how to use the current system. I'm not going to know how to use the new one. I'm going to lose my job because of it. Somebody, who understands technology better is going to come take my job. So depression and stress. Finally, once we get past that, we engage people, there starts to become an excitement, right? Initial engagement with the new situation. That happens way before we implement and put it on the desktop, okay? We start making decisions again, involving people, involving end users, integrating the system where this stuff comes from. And then, so as you can see, these are like, creative alignment, maximizing communication. When we do that, it reduces the frustration. It reduces that downward curve. And pretty soon the idea is that we can, create a curve that looks more like this. Because here you see we have huge impacts. Okay. So this is also the idea of emotional intelligence, in that if we react to something and then are affected by it deeply, no pun intended, we eventually come out of it. We don't tend to stay here with any challenge within our life. So just some things for you to consider, both in personal life and, of course, within a project. So stages, realize that people are going to actually grieve whatever it is that you've changed, whether we're implementing a system for the first time to automate a process that has yet to be automated, if you will. Okay. Whatever it is, there is going to be a grieving process that happens because of the change, because of the loss. So the 5 stages of this grieving process, of course, denial, shock, and belief. This, of course, plays back into what we were looking at here. Okay, you can see similarities here between the responses to change, right? And 5 stages of grieving change. So denial, anger, bargaining, depression, then finally some acceptance. We hope, that the situation just is what it is. There is no changing the situation. So I can either sit here or I can accept it and make the best of it. And these all sound like, standard things that we've heard, right? Make the best of change. But again, remember what it said. Change there is an emotional impact to change. As we create that management plan for change, we want to communicate that plan. So we want to literally assess the willingness, readiness, and ability for people to change. And this starts with the people on our project team, by the way. Are the managers that we're implementing this system for going to utilize it? Are they going to change their process? Are they on board for change? Are they disseminating that down to their employees? Are they excited, or are they like, oh, here comes another system? Because remember, their thought impacts as well. The impact of change is reduced the higher up you go in the hierarchy. So the impact of change, within peers is huge. Either support or bringing forth conflict or not supporting the change. So we'll look at assessing the willingness, readiness, and ability to change. We'll develop or adopt a strategy for that change. We'll communicate that. Again, that should have been in there. Implement change management plan and track the progress and evaluate experiences and develop lessons learned. We are not going to get this right 100% of the time. So what worked? What didn't work? What is it we want to try next time? Pretty important as we talk about implementing a change management plan. As it pertains to assessing willingness, readiness, and the ability to change, we need to look at sponsor, so initiating versus sustaining sponsor. So who's going to initiate the change, and then realize who's going to support the change or sustain the change. That's going to be different folks, because the project team is going to be disbanded when the project is done to go work on more projects. We still need people who are going to sustain that change. Those folks are also change agents. So the project manager is a change agent, the project team is a change agent. But again, we're going to need change agents, especially if we're going to continue to modify the application or the process to make it better, to continue to change, to continue to provide improvement within that organizational change diagram that we saw. Okay. Targets of change, the users, the customers, etc. Who's going to be affected? We need to look at that. Because a lot of times what we think is a minimal impact of change, when we really get down to it, we find that a lot of folks within our organization, our customers' customers are affected by the change we're about to make. Must understand the real impacts of change, the breadth of change. Again, is this an impact on a single person, a department under a department, the entire organization? What's over, what's not, whether the rules for success have changed. We need to take into account all of this. This is a great place to stop. We will look at the rest of this. I think we have just very little to go to finish off this section. So I'll see you in part 3. Take care.